Welcome to another episode of Meal Prep Monday. I'm your host, Allison Schaaf, and today is part 2 of our budget conversation. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, feel free to go back and listen to part 1. I will say, I think this portion of the 2 parts, this is the one that the message I really want to get out there, but I know part 1 is the practical tips in terms of saving and budget. So make sure you listen to that as well. But today I'm going to talk about food budget, but sort of another perspective and something that I think that I want you to keep in mind. Before I do that, I do want to say, I do understand food costs are rising. Food is becoming a larger percentage of the family budget as food costs rise. And I'm aware of that, and I understand that can be really hard, and I do think it's important to budget for that. But for today, I want you to also think about kind of what your food is that you're buying, what quality of food you're buying, why is that important to you? So sort of a reminder that food quality does matter, right? If you're looking at kind of your health and your body, what is your why behind buying high quality foods? And part of that can be health. Part of that can be enjoyment, right? Sitting down for family meals. At our house, family meals are very important. We sit down, sometimes 3 times a day, but definitely dinners, every day at our house, we sit down, we have a nice family meal. I want foods that we can enjoy as a family. That is something that is very important to me. And that shows up in the budget that we have for food. And keeping in mind that, food and buying high quality food is an investment for your health, right? So over time, sure, you can buy really cheap foods, right? Like sugar and white rice and, kind of those white carbs can be really cheap and filling. But over time, that can really take a toll on your health. I'm not going to go down the whole pathway of everything that can happen, but I think, all of you that are listening, have this understanding that, how you are treating and especially feeding your body and your family's bodies today can really impact the health and health consequences down the road. So I do like to think of it as an investment in my health when I'm buying high quality foods. And it's really hard. No one has that magic crystal ball to know down the road what health conditions you could run into. But I do know they can be very costly in terms of time and money. And if you can today take those steps to prevent that, it really is this big investment. So that's something I want you to just keep in mind when it comes to budgeting. I think it totally cool with budgeting and being smarter about your money that you spend at the grocery store. One thing I talked about a lot last week was using everything you purchase, right? Not being wasteful with the food you buy is kind of a huge step in terms of being more responsible with your food budget. So doing some of those things, that's great to do. But in terms of skimping on quality, right? Vegetables, they're going to be a little more expensive. That's part of the reason why eating out and doing processed foods, even doing the meal kits, those are going to, anytime you're buying a prepared meal, they are taking the budget into account when they're creating those meals. And so they are going to fill those meals with a lot of the cheaper foods, which a lot of times is less healthy, right? So when you're cooking at home, you have the option, you have the control to say, hey, I'm going to have a very vegetable heavy plate. And yes, that might cost a little bit more, but that's important to me. But when you're putting that decision in someone else's hands, a lot of times they are going to serve you less vegetables, right? Because of cost. They will, maybe not serve the high quality meat or something like that. So keep in mind that by you kind of cooking at home and making that decision, you are doing that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about here too is, kind of reflecting back on your overall household budget. And for everyone, this is different. And I understand for some people, it's going to be, a greater impact. But there's a podcast that I like. It's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Gosh, I can't remember. It's Ramit Sethi, but I can't remember if it's I think the podcast is also called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he talks with couples usually that are struggling with their budget, or sometimes it's more their money beliefs. And he talks about food a lot. It's really interesting to me. And so that might be a fun podcast for you to check out. But it's fascinating to me, all of these couples that sometimes have a significant amount of income, and they still have these weird money beliefs that all of their money is going towards food, and they really have to pinch pennies when it comes to food, or comparison shop, right? Like get on multiple sites and comparison shop for food. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's sometimes just having a perspective of like how important and how much of a difference is that going to make in your budget. And maybe it is a time in your life or a season of your life where that it is going to make a huge difference, or maybe it's not, right? Like maybe time is money. And so kind of figuring out how much comparison shopping is it worthwhile for you to do right now. With the comparison shopping, the thing I like to do is, kind of do it once, and then kind of know where the best deals are. And then have it be an exercise. You invest like batching, right? Like you do it for a few hours, like one day, and then you kind of know where the best prices are, where you're going to like, okay, this is where I'm going to purchase my meats from because they have the best prices, right? Like, so do some comparison of those different bulk stores that I talked about in last week's episode. So doing it up front, but then not like every week doing the back and forth comparison, and, because that can be a big time investment. And so just figuring out like, where is your time investment important and where is it not? And then also, again, going back to the original point of just keeping in mind that when it comes to food, there is an investment in your health piece, and just keeping that in mind. So that's today's episode. Like I said, I wanted to kind of have this be part one, but I know all of you wanted the practical tips. This is more a reminder to you of like, I want you to just think through and figure out your why in terms of food and what's important to you. And yes, like figure out what your budget is, but then from there, figuring out when things are a little bit more expensive, like, is that important to you? Why is that important to you? And just being okay with it. Because I think it's so much better to make purchases and make decisions with confidence and be okay versus having this like underlying guilt. Like, I don't want anyone having like an underlying guilt. And so coming to a place where you can be confident in the decisions you are making. That's what I want for you. Okay. So just, hopefully this is a good reflection for you to figure out where you stand on that, what season of life you are in, what you need to do in terms of figuring out your food budget. So hope this helps. I'm at Prep Dish on Instagram. I would love to hear from you if episodes like this are hitting the mark. I know a lot of you asked for some budget episodes. So was part one helpful? Was part two helpful? Let me know. I'm happy to talk more on this topic. If you have like a specific kind of angle you would like me to talk about, I'm happy to do that as well. Also a reminder that if you are looking to kind of rein in your food budget, meal planning and being very intentional with your food purchasing is a great way to start. You can head to prepdish.com/MPM to try out our service. That will definitely help you be more intentional with what you purchase. Like our grocery list, that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is anything on that grocery list you will use, especially if it's something that's perishable. We'll make sure that you use all of that item and nothing's going to waste. You can also just text the number 33777 and text the word meal prep, all one word, lowercase, to 33777, and we will just send you a free week to try it out. So I would encourage you to do that. That is all I have for this week. I will be back again next Monday with another episode.